part, most of you did well. But there were some mistakes, so we'll go over those. That way you don't make that same mistake come Monday for your test. Right, so for the first section, you needed to just solve these. And I'm going to rewrite these beneath here. I know some of you started solving it up here and then moved down here. It really didn't matter. Some of you combined your terms first. Some of you started moving things. That part didn't really matter. So if you combine your terms, this would be -2. And then we would need to add 5. This is the part that kind of messed people up. If you left this like this, you would need to read this right to left. So B is less than or equal to -1. Or if that confuses you, switch the order so that B is now on the right, but you're basically taking everything and flipping it. That way when you draw this, it is a closed circle going to the left. Most of you did that work right, but then the graph was incorrect because of the arrow. Just be careful with that. If it's backwards, you have to read it backwards so you can graph it correctly. For number 2, most of you distributed, but you could have also divided both sides by -4, either or. This would give you -12a minus 24 is less than or equal to 84. Add 24 to both sides. And you get -60. And then divide both sides by -12. Excuse me. But remember that when you divide, you have to change your sign. Some of you forgot about that, and that threw your graph off. So this would then be A is now greater than or equal to a +5. So this would be a closed circle going to the right. Number 3, you needed to distribute twice. So you have 16 is greater than or equal to 4n minus 24 plus 6n plus 18. Some of you combine your terms, some of you started moving for 24 and 18. Either way, that part doesn't matter, as long as you did it correctly. So this would be 10n and minus 6. Add 6 to both sides. And you have -10 on the left and 10n on the right. Divide both sides by 10. And you'd end up with -1 is greater than or equal to n, or if you read it backwards, n is less than or equal to -1. Or you can flip the whole thing so that it says that. So this would also be a closed circle at -1 going to the left. And then the very last one, you needed to get the v's on one side and the constants on the other. Did not matter how you started that. Some of you moved to V, some of you moved to V. If you moved to V and subtracted, you would end up dividing by negative. But if you move B, you would have ended up switching it at the end. So either or, you're doing something. So let's say that would give us negative B minus 6 is greater than or equal to negative 12. Add 6 to the other side. We get negative B is greater than or equal to negative 6. Then we can divide both sides by negative 1. And B is now less than or equal to 6. So that would again be a closed circle. It just so happened that all of these were greater than, all of these were equal to inequalities. That wasn't like intentional. To 4.2, do we have any questions on any of those? How they were solved? Anything that you're not sure why something's incorrect? For the most part, everyone did pretty well with this one. There were some issues with 4.2, more issues, I should say. For number 5, this is which type of inequality, and or? Alex, and. That means we need to do the same thing to everything, but we should be solving for the middle. I had some that were adding 6 to everything to make it 0, but that's not what we should have been doing. Getting rid of the 6 in the middle is what we should have been doing. And since these are multiplying, we would divide everything by 6 to get negative 1 is less than or equal to A, which is less than 5. If you divided correctly, the other issue I saw with this one especially is the arrows. Remember, and inequalities graphed together, so there shouldn't be multiple arrows going other ways. With this, it should start here and end here. So there should be a closed circle at negative 1, an open circle at 5, and there should be a line connecting them. Which means if that line weren't there, it would have started at negative 1 and kept going to the right. And for 5, it would have started at 5 and went to the left. And where they overlap is that line. Any questions on number 5 before we go on? Number 6 had 2 different equations, or inequalities, so you should have solved them separately. So this first one, you should have added 3 to both sides. You guys freak out when you get 0, but 0 can be an answer. Divide everything by 4, and x is less than 0. That would be an open circle at 0, going to the left. And then the other one, 3 minus 2x is less than negative 1. We would subtract 3 to the other side to get negative 4. Divide everything by negative 2. The sign changes and this becomes a positive 2. So this would be x is greater than 2, so an open circle at 2 to the right. The very last thing, and this was minor, because this is an or inequality, this needs to have or in between it. Questions on that one? The other 7 and 8 were very much the same. Add 5 to both sides for this one. We have negative b is less than 3. Divide both sides by negative 1. We have b is now greater than negative 3. That would be an open circle at negative 3 going to the right. And then solve the other one. Subtract 6 on both sides to get negative 20. And divide everything by 4. To get v is less than or equal to negative 5. That would be a closed circle at negative 5 going to the left. And because this is an or inequality, I need or in between. And then the last one. Both of these have variables on both sides, so you need to get k on one of the sides and a constant on the other for both. Did not matter how you do that. I'm going to subtract 2k to get negative 5k. And then add 5 to get 0. Which means when we divide, our sign is going to change, but k is still going to be, this number is still going to be 0. So greater than or equal to, but now 0. So that would be a closed circle at 0 going to the right. And then solve your other one. I'm going to move 4k to the left. We get negative 2k minus 2 is greater than or equal to 6. Add 2 to the other side to get 8. Divide everything by negative 2. So our sign changes direction once again. It is now less than and negative 4. So that would be a closed circle at negative 4 going to the left. And 4. What questions, concerns, confusion do we have on any of this? So on Monday, you guys will be taking this test, 4.1, 4.2. So for the remainder of class, use this time to practice. Go back and do these academies, these delta maths. Go back in the review. Go back in the additional notes practice and do any of those. If you have questions, you can come up to me because I have a bunch of stuff I gotta grade. Does anyone have any questions on what we're doing for the remainder of class?